Good evening, everyone. Thank you all so much for tuning into my channel once again. Today we're going to be finishing the book of Ecclesiastes. This is the words of the preacher, the king in Jerusalem, which of course would have been King Solomon, the son of David. And Solomon prayed for a wise and discerning heart, and God gave it to him. And he gave Solomon more wisdom according to the word of God than any man before him or any man that would come after him. And because of that, we must really take these things to heart as we study the concluding chapter of the book of Ecclesiastes. Now, you are looking at a Geneva Bible from the year of 1608, this particular one. The original was printed in 1560, so this was 48 years after the original printing, which means the Reformation footnotes and side column references are they've been perfected by this point. So it's a lovely Bible to read and study so we can gain an understanding of Reformation theology and also be sharpened by the words of Solomon. Now, without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and get into the word. This is a live recording, by the way. So it just so happens that chapter 12, we just have the introduction to the chapter on this page, and then I'll be turning the page. But I thought it good to show the preface material. So in verse 1, to think on God in youth and not to defer till age. And then verse 7, the soul returned to God. Verse 11, wisdom is the gift of God and consisteth in fearing him and keeping his commandments. And that's going to kind of be the final theme that we're going to get into. And then as you see, we have remember. So that's where we're going to start. Let me go ahead and turn the page. Okay, so let me go ahead and refocus now. Yeah, the focus can be a little bit better. I can touch it a little bit more here. I don't like the autofocus feature sometimes on this camera, but let me center that in the page. That'll work right there. Remember now thy Creator in the days of thy youth, whiles the evil days come not, nor the years approach, wherein thou shalt say, I have no pleasure in them. Whiles the sun is not dark, nor the light, nor the moon, nor the stars, nor the clouds return after the rain. Now we have our first footnote here in verse 2. Which is the little a by clouds, before thou come to a continual misery, for when the clouds remain after the rain, man's grief is increased. So we're already in a very melancholy state here. You know, this is the pains of getting old. And even on a day where there was rain, there's no sunshine. I mean, there's a lot of symbolic and metaphorical things going on here, but let's continue. Verse 3, when the keepers of the house shall tremble. Now we footnote B, the hands which keep the body. So when the hands begin to lose their strength. And the strong men shall bow themselves. Now the strong men here, footnote C, the legs. And the strong men shall bow themselves. So the legs begin to go out. And the grinders shall cease, that is the teeth. You begin to lose teeth in age because they are few. And they wore dark that look out by the windows. So then your eyes even, in footnote E, that part of your body that looks out the window, you know, even it becomes dark. Now we're going to continue in verse 4, and the doors shall shut without by the bass sound of the grinding, and he shall rise up at the voice of the bird. Now we have three footnotes here. And the doors shall shut without. The doors, the lips, or the mouth. And then we have the bass sound of the grinding, footnote G. Now look at the footnote here, it's very interesting. Let me try to clear this up a little bit more for y'all. I think that was it right there. Footnote G, when the CHAWES, when the jaws shall scarce open and not be able to chew anymore. That's just a very interesting way to spell that. The chals. Remember that. 1608. Let me refocus on the main text. Okay. So now we have footnote H as our next footnote, which is, and he shall rise up at the voice of the bird and the, okay, so the bird, let's take that on. He shall not be able to sleep. You know, sometimes when men are aged or women, they stay up late at night. They wake up at all hours. It's like sleep escapes them. That's what Solomon's saying here. And Solomon would know. He lived a very blessed life. He was an old king in his death. And all the daughters of singing shall be abased. Footnote I. That is, the windpipes or the ears shall be deaf. You know, there's a huge market in hearing aids for those that are old and not able to hear the singing. Think about a musician and how tragic that becomes. This is the pains of growing old and eventually death, the physical death, the carnal death. Now let's go ahead in verse 5. Also they shall be afraid of the high thing. Now we have a footnote here in front of high thing, footnote K, to climb high because of the weakness, or they stoop down as though they were afraid to lest anything should hit them. So, you know, when you get old, you become feeble. You can't really climb ladders, or if you stoop too low, can you rise again? If something hits you when you're low, can you recover? And fear shall be in the way. They shall tremble as they go. That's the footnote for that one. And the almond tree shall flourish. And this says, their head shall be as white as the blossoms of an almond tree. Now, Solomon also said that a head of white hair is a crown of glory for the aged. So don't let melancholy, spirit take you too far here. If you've lived a righteous life, it's a godly thing growing old. Let's continue. And concupiscence shall be driven away. That's sexual lust and activity. That seems to cease when the body ceases. For men goeth to the house of his age, and the mourners go about in the street. Verse 6, whiles the silver cord is not length, and we're going to need to turn the page here, but footnote O, actually, whiles the silver cord is not length, meaning the marrow of the backbone and the sinews. The body begins to deteriorate with age, and it just becomes unpleasant. That's what Solomon is saying here, weak. And we know that the flesh is weak. So the silver cord lengthen, nor the golden ewer broken. Now we have this golden ewer. Now this is a very peculiar footnote. Footnote P, the little skin that covereth the brain, which is the color like gold. Now I'm not sure how they would quite know that in the year 1608, but I'm sure there were autopsies back then. Just a very interesting footnote. Nor the pitcher broken. We have a footnote Q for pitcher, that is the veins. Old people bruise very easy. Some young people even do. Then we have footnote R, meaning the liver. Pitcher broken at the well, nor the well broken at the cistern. So we have a footnote F for well, that is the heart of the which the head draweth the power of life. The heart pumping the blood of life. That's the thought here. And then to sum this up, we have the cistern, which is T. So that is the cistern. And then F, which is the head. That's the one that I missed here. So you see there in verse 6. Okay, we're going to continue here in verse 7 then. And the dust returneth to the earth as it was, and the spirit returneth to God that gave it. Now this is interesting. So from dust thou hast come, and dust shalt thou return. That's what God said because of sin. The spirit then therefore returns unto God that gave it. We have footnote U, and I'm going to scoot this up so we can see that. The soul inconsciously goeth either to joy or torment, and sleepeth not as the wicked imagine. So that's real interesting. The soul inconsciously goeth either to joy or torment, and sleepeth not as the wicked imagine. So some of those in the Old Testament, their hope was in the grave, the wicked, thinking that life would be better. But of course we know from the Synoptic Gospels and also the book of Enoch, which should be studied even if it's not canonical, there is a place of the dead where the soul goes. And we know that Abraham's bosom, and there was a great chasm where the rich man and the poor man, they could see each other, but there was a chasm, there was a barricade of some type fixed. And one was in torment, the one that had lived evil and wicked in his days, without caring for the one that had not. So the soul is going to go to that place. That's what we're told here by Solomon. Now in verse 8, vanity of vanities, saith the preacher, all is vanity. And again, this is a reoccurring line. Everything is striving after wins. And this is why I argue that even vanities mean something, because although it's vain and it's temporal, but yet God has given us things to do. But ultimately, the greatest thing to do in this life is to come to a real relationship with Him, because He is the only thing truly abiding and everlasting. And I think that's what Solomon the preacher here is also pointing us to. There's many things we will enjoy, but the purpose of this life is to come to a loving, understanding relationship with our Creator. Verse 9, and the more wise the preacher was, the more he taught the people knowledge, and caused them to hear, and searched forth and prepared many parables. So of course Solomon was a very wise and witty teacher at times. Verse 10, the preacher sought to find out pleasant words and the upright writing, even the words of truth. So he has sought things, many things. And we know that when the Queen of the South visited Solomon, she had many of her chief wise men from her kingdom and her realm, and she tested Solomon, and he was easily able to discern and solve all her riddles and various things like that. So Solomon was, he was expert in this, of course, being filled with the wisdom of God by the Spirit. Verse 11, the words of the wise are like goads and like knells, flattened by the masters of the assemblies, which are given by one pastor. Now this is an interesting verse, verse 11. Flattened. Now if we look at that, footnote X, which are well applied by the ministers whom he calleth masters. Everything is held together by wise words. It's secured by the masters, the teachers of the assemblies, of course, the Levitical line, the priest, the teachers of the truth and the word, the law at the time, which are given by one pastor. Footnote Y, that is by God. And this is, of course, the Lord. Before we knew him as the chief shepherd, in a sense, before the Word became flesh and he dwelled among us, and we beheld his glory as of the only begotten of the Father, full of grace and truth, the light that lighteth every man. Verse 12, and the other things besides these, my son, take thou heed, for there is none end in making many books. Now this is an interesting verse. There's no end to making many books. And then look at what he says, and much reading is weariness of the flesh. God did not put us here to write books continually. I mean, knowledge has its limits. There are secret things with God. And as Solomon said in the end of chapter 8, though a wise man might claim, I know it, how can it truly be known? God knows the truth. It's in the secret counsels, and it's been written in his truth from eternity. And that's part of the mystery there that keeps us seeking. Verse 13, let us hear the end of all, fear God and keep his commandments, for this is the whole duty of man. And this is kind of the well, if we base things on the law, this is kind of like the cornerstone argument of Solomon here. Let us hear the end of all, fear God and keep his commandments, for this is the whole duty of man, right? This is his conclusive statement here. For God will bring every work into judgment with every secret thing, whether it be good or evil. Now, I want to go back and read footnote Z, because that was real important, and I have skipped that one, and this is concerning many books. Footnote Z, these things cannot be comprehended in books or learned by study, but God must instruct thy heart, that thou mayest only know that wisdom is the true felicity, and the way thereunto is to fear God. So felicity, that is that intense happiness or joy. So if we want to have true happiness and joy in our life, it doesn't necessarily come by comprehending books or learning and studying, but it's by being instructed by God, by the Spirit in thy heart, that thou mayest only know the wisdom that is true joy, the true joy and happiness, and that the way thereunto is to fear God. The fear of God is a fountain of life. The fear of God keeps our soul secure because we fear him. And God, he actually protects and strengthens and establishes those that fear him. So this is the concluding chapter of the book of Ecclesiastes. You guys, please like, comment, subscribe. If any verse has stuck out to you, feel free to comment down below. And thank y'all so much for tuning in. Until next time, y'all have a blessed day.